Welcome to today's webinar, Introduction into the VAPS, Visual Advanced Production Scheduler for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. I'm Martin Karlovic, and I'm CEO and one of the owners of NETRONIC Software from Germany, and I'm the host for today's webinar. So I share my contact details here with you, both my email address and my LinkedIn handle. So in case that you have any question, in case that you have any comment, or if you have any idea on how we or our products can do better, then please send an email. I will answer it definitively, or send me a message on LinkedIn and I will answer it there as well. So today, this is a webinar, and the webinar is most of the time me speaking, it is only me speaking, but I am more than happy to engage. And if you have a question, then please send an email. If you have an idea, please send an email. That's very important to us, that we get your voice, that we get your ideas, and that we get your help, and that you challenge us. With this, for today's webinar, a bit of housekeeping. So first of all, this is really a beginner's level webinar. I will introduce the Visual Advanced Production Schedule, and I try to keep it short. So let's say 45 minutes. And the idea is to just give you an idea of what this extension can do for you or for your client. We record the session, we make the recording available afterwards. If you have a question, then please use the chat function to ask a question, and most likely I will not answer your question during the webinar, because I just want to give the introduction today and not go into big discussions, but we will review your question and we will review every question that you ask, and then we will provide the answer via email after the webinar. So please make sure you use the chat function to ask a question, and then be prepared to get an email either from me or from my colleagues. So the VAPS is a product called Visual Advanced Production Scheduler, and it is the first finite capacity scheduling extension that fully integrates into Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. So first of all, it is an extension. So it is available for Business Central. It is available from Business Central version 14 to all Business Central versions that exist. And it is available for on-premise installation as well as it is available on app stores. We release a new version every quarter, so that if you're under subscription or under valid support and maintenance agreement, then you get new functionality and new version every quarter. So this sentence here, this is kind of how we highlight the product, or how we summarize the product. And just recently, I discussed with somebody from our industry, and he said, "Okay, Martin, I got this, but can you explain me in 3 or 4 more sentences, in no marketing words, what the VAPS is?" And I thought, okay, let's try to explain the VAPS in 3 words. And I assume that you joined this webinar because you're either a manufacturing company that uses Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central or considers using it, or you're a partner who works with manufacturing clients using Business Central. And I'm pretty sure that you know how many manufacturing customers struggle with keeping delivery times and with having a realistic schedule. So they get a schedule out of Business Central, but this oftentimes is not very realistic. And they struggle with it because they add just too many production orders a day or a week, and in the same turn, they have too many day-to-day changes on the shop floor. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with this situation, either if you're a customer or user, or if you're a partner, then you have seen this with many of your customers. So instead of giving those customers either a manual Gantt chart or an automatic black box scheduler to deal with this, we integrate both techniques. So we integrate automatic scheduling with a manual Gantt chart scheduler, and then we integrate this blended techniques into Business Central. And this is what we call visual advanced production scheduling. It's the combination of manual Gantt chart-based scheduling and algorithmic finite capacity scheduling. And the idea is that it gives you a realistic production schedule that you can control because you have all the tools to control the schedule and you have all the tools to, let's say, unveil the magic of the black box scheduler. So if you have a realistic production schedule that you can control, you actually get answers to some of the questions that are really hard to answer when you use Business Central without visual advanced production scheduling. And these questions are hey, I need to squeeze in a rush job. What is the impact on the overall schedule, right? The boss job, handling the boss job is quite hard when you have no scheduling product, when you just add the job and then see what the impact is, looking at all those Business Central tables, quite hard. Likewise, what is if a machine breaks down and then you need to reschedule everything and you need to make sure that the important jobs are still done in time. You have to handle a lot of not connected data within Business Central, and with Visual Advanced Production Scheduling, you get an answer to this question quite fast. And likewise, if you don't know what impacts your throughput, then it's hard to make the right measures on the shop floor. So you want to easily spot bottlenecks, and this is also something that the VAPS helps with. The VAPS makes a difference compared to standard Business Central production, and it also makes a difference to a product that we had built in the past, the Visual Production Scheduler, VPS, and that we continue to have for Business Central. So first of all, the VAPS fully integrates into and with Dynamics 365 Business Central. And I mean both propositions into and with, I both mean them. So it integrates into Business Central, and there is something missing. I don't know why this animation is like this, but anyway, so it integrates into Business Central. So there are no data interfaces, no interfaces to outsource outside servers. So the scheduling logic happens within Business Central. I know that there are great products out there that help you with automatic scheduling, but they all will require from you to send the data outside of your Business Central database to another server, and sending data from one system to the other is always a security risk, it is a data stability risk, it is a performance risk. So we stay within Business Central. There's no data faces and no data interface and no interfaces to outside servers. And we integrate with Business Central. So of course we integrate with production owners, right? We work with the Business Central production owners, but the VAPS also knows the production journal, so it integrates with the shop floor, and the VAPS also knows the planning worksheet, so it integrates with MPS and MRP, so that in an ideal case, you have an integrated solution with shop floor data, a machine and production order sequence schedule, and then you have MPS and MRP from the planning worksheet. The VAPS gives you a visual schedule, including drag and drop capabilities, and it lets you look at your data from the viewpoint of your capacity and your capacity utilization. This is called what we call this is what we call the capacity view, but it lets you also look at the production orders and the structure of the production orders so that you can see which production orders run late. And it lets you also look at the production orders from the view of a sales order so that you can see how you are doing with serving your sales order. It comes with automatic scheduling, and it's an automatic forward scheduling with finite capacity. So we don't overload your machine centers. We make sure that you get a realistic schedule other than with Business Central, where you plan with infinite capacity and hence get an unrealistic schedule. We provide you within the VAPS multiple scheduling tools to support different scheduling challenges, and I will show you a few of them in a minute. We allow you to set up alternative machine centers with productivity factors, both on the setup and on the runtime. So you can say, okay, these two machines are allowed. I prefer the machine one, but if it goes to machine two, it's still okay, but then I have to run the machine a little bit slower. So maybe we use this only if there is a lot of work scheduled to machine one and idle time on machine two. With the VAPS, you can actually schedule with earliest material availability date, EMAT. So we have a mechanism within the VAPS that will calculate material available for you and give this to you as an input factor for scheduling. And with the VAPS, you can create multiple production simulations, then you can compare them, and then you can publish the best. And this is what the VAPS is all about. And now let's have a look at the software itself. And no, we are not yet at the Q&A part. So let's go to Business Central and let's look at the VAPS. When you have installed the VAPS and the VAPS is an extension to Business Central, then you can add it to the Road Center. If you don't have it in the Road Center, you have to look actually for production simulations to get the to work with the scheduler. All the other entries that you see here, they are just for setting up the VAPS, and this is something your partner helps you with or we help you with when you go live with the VAPS. But the area that you work with is the simulations area. The simulation area, and this is the area that you also go to via if you search for production simulation. The simulation area is built following a certain workflow. So first you go here, you come here, you should do what we call the EMAT allocation. This is a calculation of the EMAT, and EMAT stands for earliest material availability date. So what we do here, and I start this now, I clear all my data. What we do here is that for a certain period of time, we look for all component demand and for all component supply, and then we allocate component supply to component demand on a day level, so that on the production order component line, we can say this is the earliest date that this production order component is available. And then if we look at all those dates on all production order component lines, then we know what is the earliest material availability date for all material of this production order line. I will show how this works a bit to you later. When we say we calculate the allocations, and I do this now, then we don't do any hard physical reservation of components to production orders. Of course, we take into account the reservations that you have in Business Central, but we don't add new reservations or we don't change existing reservations. We just take them as an input variable to do these allocations. So the allocation of a component to a production order. So this component here was allocated to that production order 101084 with a quantity of 50. Likewise, that component and so on and so forth. So this allocation is just something that happens within the VAPS world. But with this, we actually now have information which component is available when. So then we can create a simulation. And when we create a simulation, this means we copy certain production orders into a separate table, which we keep within Business Central. And on this table, you do all your scheduling. You make all your changes. You can test out things, and you can also run multiple simulations in parallel, then compare them by some KPIs that we give you, and then decide which simulation is best. And only when you publish a simulation, you write back the data from your schedule into your production orders. So in my case here, I say the minimum status that I want to take into account are firm planned production orders. I want to look at the time frame which I defined relative. So I want to look a week back from my work date and 2 months into the future. My work date in my demo system here still is the 28th of January 21. So now if I look back a week, I'm looking at a time range starting from the 21st of January to the 28th of March. And I can define a view color type, which means I can define a color in which I look at my production orders. And you know what? I just told you that we can allocate material to components, and by this calculate the earliest material availability date. So first of all, I actually want to know if I have material on hand for all those production orders that I scheduled. So I start with what is called the availability view. And I leave the rest blank. So now we copy all production orders that are either firm planned or planned um, within this date range into a certain table. And if I do this now, you see here is a new line now. I have a second simulation. Here is already a first simulation. And now I can build scenarios of my schedule with my first simulation that I did before the webinar and my um, simulation that I just created, and then I can compare them. So now, after I made the EMAT allocations, after I created simulation, I actually want to view the simulation. So now let's view the simulation, and and I specified I want to see the availability view. So now the schedule comes up and it basically shows is in two colors. It is green and red. So before we look at the green and red, which is from the availability view, let's quickly see what we have on the screen. So first of all, the VAPS always starts in what we call the capacity view. And the capacity view here is structured by my work center groups on the top level. And you see I have three work center groups, subcontracting, finishing, and machining. And then within the work center groups, I have my work center. So here in subcontracting, I have two subcontracting work centers. In finishing, I have two work centers, assembly and quality control. And then under quality control, I have two machine centers, quality control 1 and quality control 2. I have four assembly stations. And likewise in machining, I have a work center drilling with some drills. I have a work center milling and turning with some milling and turning machines. I have a work center sawing with a saw, and I have a work center welding with a couple of welding places. So this is what we see on the left-hand side. Then you see here in the schedule in the background, we give you some information that this is gray and white. If there is work time in white or non-work time in gray, this is information we get from the shop calendar that you define on the work center level. Then what you see here in yellow is what we call the standby resource. These are those production orders that we have in Business Central, but that are not yet scheduled by the VAPS. So this means everything that you see here on, for example, my drilling machines is something that I scheduled before with the VAPS and published. So everything that you see here on the machine centers actually reflects my current production schedule. Likewise with the other machines, of course. And so everything that is on the standby resource is something that was added to Business Central and not yet scheduled by me, who is the production planner of this sample company. So as the work date is the 28th of January, so you see there's this red line, which is the work deadline. So this is today. So you see for the remainder of this week, next week, and the week after, I have a pretty decent backlog of work on my two drills that I have here. I use my milling and turning area quite well. I have some workload on the saw, a bit of welding workload, and I'm also quite busy in assembly and quality control for the next 2, maybe 3 weeks. So this is my current backlog of work here in this sample company that I'm having. So now, next to this capacity view, we have two more views that we could look at just to see the data. So the capacity view is the view in which we do the work, in which we do the scheduling, because if we do finite capacity scheduling, it's always important to see every production order in the context of what is happening on the machine. And this is a tool for production order and machine sequencing. However, we have two more views that you can just use to look at the data in a different way. We have the production order view, where here in this example, I look at my production orders by status. So I see my release production order first, my firm planned production orders. Then I arranged these production orders by due date so that I see my next due release production order first. From here, I can actually also look at the structure of my production order, and you see all those dates here, which are basically the delivery dates. And I see actually there is one production order here that I have in my schedule where I'm running late right now. So where I'm finishing that particular item too late after a due date. So I will come, actually I'm finishing that one late. But anyway, I will come to this this mimic. I will come to this later in this webinar. And then I also have a third view, which is the sales order view, where I actually look at my sales orders and I see, like here, this is sales order 1018, and I see, okay, I have on this sales order, let me actually look at the sales order. So here I double click and then the sales order opens and I see I'm selling to the Canon Group 4 items with a requested delivery date on the 3rd of March. I see the items, I see the quantity, and I see also, like here, for all planned delivery date 3rd of March. And this is the information I see here. I see those 4 items. I see the planned delivery date 3rd of March. And then I can drill down into the production orders, see when they are scheduled, and I also can drill down into the operations and see when they are scheduled. And if I want to change them, for example, on the schedule, then I would go right mouse click, showing capacity view, and then this guy is highlighted, and you see this is actually in the standby resource. So this is something I need to schedule, which I will do in a minute. So now let's go to my coloring, and you saw most of this is green. So for most of my production orders, I have material available, but this guy shows in red, and this gives me a warning that tells me, hey, this material is not available at the moment. So at the moment this was scheduled. So now let's do a double click, go to the production order. We see, and from the text here, it says 5004. So I have the item number on this bar, and this is also customizable as well. So I can do a double click. I go to the production order line for that particular item here, and I see I want to start working on this on the 1st of February, and the earliest material date is the 4th of February. So let's go back to the schedule. How can I see from here what the earliest material availability date is? Well, now we know that this 4th of February is the earliest material availability date. So when I start moving it, you see left from this 4th of February, the screen is dark. Right from the 4th of February, the green is lighter. So here is this gray curtain, which while I'm moving indicates me the earliest material availability date also during the interaction. And this is the way of how you see it with manual things that you do to the schedule. Of course, you can configure the VAPS in a way that when you do automatic scheduling, that we automatically take the earliest material availability date as a restriction. So if I move it to a later point of time when actually my material is available, you see this now turned green because now I scheduled at a point of time when the material is available. Just let's have a look how we come to the idea that for this production order line, the earliest material availability is the 4th of February. And in order to understand this, I can drill down into the production order component lines. And then we see for this production order line, we need two components. We need the component base material and we need the sample component. And You see at the end of this table, we added two columns. We added the column earliest material availability date and earliest material availability date allocation. And these columns were actually populated when I said calculate allocations earlier on in this demo. And we see the first material is available on the 29th of January. And as I wanted initially to start on the 1st of February, this was actually no issue. But the second component only is available on the 4th of February. And this now, because at that 4th of February, all components for this production order line are available. This 4th of February was set as earliest material availability date to the production order line here. So how did we identify the 4th of February as the earliest date that this material is available? Well, we can have a look at this from the item card. And if I go to that particular item, we see that we have none of this item on stock. We require 400 on production order component design. We don't require them on a sales order. We don't build them, but we have 2,500 on a purchase order. So if we look at this purchase order, which is a purchase order in this case, we already see from here that we expect 2,500 from that vendor to arrive on the 4th of February. So this is the expected receipt date for that component from that production order. And when I go into that purchase order, we see it's only this purchase order, very simple. It includes just one purchase order line for that component arriving on the 4th of February. And as we don't build this component and as we don't have it on stock, this 4th of February is the earliest availability date for that component. And hence, we have this date here. We gave this date to the production order line, and we visualize this as the gray curtain, as you saw when I moved this, and we take this into account when we do scheduling. So now let's schedule actually. So you saw already I made a right movement. So I moved this production order to the right. So I changed the start and the end date. And if there would have been a successor close by, we would have moved it as well. Of course, I could undo this, which I won't do now. Now, we spoke about earlier that this yellow area represents those production orders that have been added to Business Central and that I, as a planner, need to take care of. So now let's take this one, because this seems to be it seems to have a quite soon demand date because Business Central positioned it here for some reason. So I have to add it to the schedule somehow. So let's look at the production order. And it shows, okay, this is required, and this is a field that we added. This is a date we would take also from the sales order. If you create a sales order with the sales order due date, then we would take the date from here and set it to the required due date. So this date is kept fixed as long as you need this. So the 27th of February is the date when we should be ready with this production order. And if I select the production order, you see the required due date shown here. So then we have the capability to give this production order a certain color. And here in this case, I decided I want to see it in red. So why is it shown in green, although I told the system that it should be red? Well, we have the color scheme applied to give us information about material availability. So now, if I want to have the information about the production order, I change the color mode and I say, hey, I want to actually now color it by production order. And then we get the production order's individual color. And I know that here, in this case, now it doesn't make sense because it's very colorful, but we have customers who have who manufacture to a sales order, so who manufacture to a concrete customer demand, but they also have some sub-assemblies and components that they build themselves, and sometimes they build more components than they need for a sales order because they produce the components on stock. So in essence, they have a combined order and stock production. And when this is the case, that typically production orders are very customer orders are very time sensitive, and stock orders have come with some flexibility. So in that case, I recommend to make give stock orders one color and then have separate colors for separate customers, for example. But here now, just assume I would have said that all my stock orders are in blue, then I would know where I could gain flexibility in my schedule. So now let's add this production order, which is in red, to the schedule. And of course, I can go and drag and drop this. So here now I have free capacity on the saw because I just moved out this one thing. This is very easy going. But now what to do here on drill. So I can take this and squeeze this between in the green and the purple one, but then drag and drop is always like a decision about a priority. If I drag it here and drop it, I say, hey, I want to squeeze it in between the green and the purple. So this red one is more important than all those others that were here. And so now everything got pushed out automatically. On all the successors of this got also pushed out automatically. So I see that this upstream change has or can have actually a lot of downstream changes. I now could check again, for example, with the production order view, I don't do it now if this had an impact on the due date of some of the other production orders. However, other than just dragging and dropping it, I could also ask myself the question, hey, I actually did a lot of work on scheduling and I have a decent production schedule right now. What would be a realistic finish date for this production order if I just add this to the schedule with making use of the capacity as good as I can, but without changing the schedule? So what would happen if I just apply the routing as I defined it in Business Central? And if we look at the routing, it says, okay, this goes to the saw, it goes to drilling one, it goes to assembly one, and it goes to quality control. So if we take into account the current capacity utilization of these resources, and if we apply the routing, then of course it would go to the saw here immediately, but it has to wait quite a long time before we can drill it because the drill number one is quite busy for the next period of time. And then we would have to wait again because the assembly line is also busy. We would wait again because the quality control is busy. And then you see we get a warning, hey, the required due date is violated because the default machines that I apply to it are just too busy for the given period of time. So now I could with drag and drop try to accelerate it. However, let me undo this. And for those of you who watched carefully, you might have also noticed that the routing has changed a bit compared to how you know the routing. So on the routing, we have a new column, which is the alternate routing set. So with the VAPS, you can actually define allowed alternative machine. So for example, if we look in sawing, I have no alternative because I just have one saw here in my sample shop. But in drilling, I have two drills, right? I have drill one and drill two. And with this set that I defined, I actually find that both drills are allowed. And in this case, I also defined that both drills are equal. They take the same time to set them up, and the production time per unit, the runtime, is also the same. So in this case, we could just select one of those two drills, and I have a similar alternatives in my assembly and on my quality control. So rather than saying, just take the standard routing, I could also tell the software, okay, please find me the earliest available date for this production order based on the current capacity utilization and based on all allowed alternatives. So I can say, okay, I want to apply the alternative routing. Then of course it goes to the saw, then it finds a free spot on drilling. That means we can use available capacity on assembly line one earlier, and then we are done in quality control earlier. And instead of finalizing here in March, we finish the production order early February. So this is efficiency that you get with the VAPS. speaking about efficiency, now you see there are actually a couple of production orders that are here on the standby resource that needs to get added to the schedule. And you saw there was this one here, I think that was this guy, that comes from a sales order. So let me just show it in the sales order view. Yeah, this is from that sales order. We looked at that before, sales order 1018 with these 4 items. And you see this must be ready here by the, I think the 3rd of March. So now the question is, when can I finish this? And when can I finish all these others that are on standby and that have been added now by some of my colleagues working in sales, and where we got some new sales orders, created new production orders from them, and now I need to add them to the schedule. So now, of course, I could go like I just did before. I can say right mouse click, I can say apply routing, and then or apply alternative routing, and then I would add it somewhere to the schedule. But you know, if you get 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 production orders a day, that this can become quite tedious. So we want to provide you more efficiency. So you can also say action, schedule, add all, including alternatives. And then we take all production orders that are on standby and we add them to the schedule, looking for the earliest available spot within all allowed alternatives. And then you get a realistic production schedule for all your production orders within finite automatic scheduling. And now you can go here again to the sales order view, and you can tell your customer, look, this is how we scheduled it right now. This is what we are going to think when we are going to be ready. And you have really realistic dates, realistic schedule dates for, and realistic finish dates for those production orders that you build for certain sales orders. So here in this case, actually, I'm pretty good because I'm finishing everything before the customer wants it. So let me go back to the capacity view. This is actually an overview of what the VAPS can do. You saw when I did action, there are a lot of options here. We have quite a bit of more functions in here, maybe just one function. You may wonder, like if we look here at the turning machine, there are some gaps in between. And you see when I click this one here, this one cannot start earlier because this is like successor restricted because it has to wait until the predecessor is finished. But I can also say, okay, I want to check if I can bring forward things here on the turning machine. So we can say, okay, fill idle times in this machine center, and then we bring everything forward, which did not happen because this is all predecessor constrained. But if there wouldn't be a predecessor constraint, let me look at this guy. No, there. I think most of this here is predecessor constraint. No, this is not predecessor constraint. Maybe this is material constraint, but I would go here and say fill idle times on this machine center. And also this is not brought forward because it is actually, if we start to move it, yeah, it is material constraint. So we cannot start it earlier because the material is only available here at that period of time. So there's a lot of things that you can achieve with the VAPS. It gives you a very realistic schedule because it schedules automatically with finite capacity, but it gives you also full control over your schedule because there are a lot of tools that you can use for certain scheduling tasks. Like I showed you, you can drag and drop every single operation. You can select a certain production order and add it to the schedule, taking account the standard routing or taking into account all allowed alternatives. We have functions to add multiple production orders to the schedule in one go, so which is very efficient. You have functions to fill idle times and so reduce the work in progress. So there are a lot of capabilities within the VAPS. And as this webinar was meant to be an introduction into the VAPS extension for Business Central, I don't want to go into all the details, but I would like to go back and see if you have any questions. So if you have a question, then please use the chat box of GoToWebinar, and as said earlier, we will review your questions later on and then provide answers via email later today, latest tomorrow, and either myself or one of your colleagues will reach out to you. If you don't have a question yet, but if you have like reviewed the information, if you've thought about what you've seen today, then send me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn and send a message there. I'm really happy to engage. We are all happy to have you as customers or partners, and we are happy to look into your respective cases and try to figure out if and how you could make use of the VAPS. And with this, thank you very much for your attention today. Stay safe and healthy, and let's be in contact. Bye for now.